Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 16th of March 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into the news from the day. So, actually this only happened a couple of hours ago, but Aave basically announced that they're going to now be enabling their AMM market. So this is now live, and what this is, it basically allows you to use your Uniswap LP tokens and Balancer LP tokens as collateral in the Aave protocol. So this has been a long time coming. They've teased it for quite a while, and I mentioned yesterday how they were teasing it on Twitter, and today they've kind of released it here. So if you are a liquidity provider to any of these kind of pairs that you can see here, there's a bunch of the most popular pairs on Uniswap like DAI USDC, WBTC USDC, DAI ETH, USDC ETH, and all this sort of stuff. And there's a bunch of other tokens here like SNX, Uni, and YFI and things like that. So if you're an LP and you have those LP tokens, you can now put them into Aave and use them as collateral to borrow against. And, we've seen Maker do this, I think a few weeks ago, where you could mint DAI using LP tokens on Uniswap, which is really cool. But I think Aave has more options here. With Maker, it was only a handful, or I think there was only maybe two that you could use, whereas with Aave, you can obviously use a lot more than two here, but with Balancer LP tokens, you can only use two different pairs: WBTC wrapped ETH pair and the BAL wrapped ETH pair as well. And then users who kind of deposit these LP tokens can borrow stablecoins, ETH or WBTC against these kind of things, and people can actually borrow AMM LP tokens as well by using stablecoins, ETH or WBTC as collateral. So this is really cool. I mean, I spoke about this when Maker kind of did it, but this is just like the power of the composability and the money Legos within Ethereum, right? Where you can get an active kind of like market making position essentially, through these LP tokens and tokenize them and collateral and use them as collateral to borrow against. And, with those funds, it's funny because you can do this recursive kind of leverage thing where you take your LP token, use it as collateral, borrow, say you borrow like some stable coins, go LP with that as well, go LP in the same pair, and then put that pair back into kind of like Aave, and then go and do it again and again. It's kind of like, levering up recursively here. Obviously risky, but something that I think is uniquely enabled by DeFi here, which is really, really cool to see. So I expect these to be very popular. I know that on Maker, the two LP tokens that they had from Uniswap were very, very popular and hit the debt ceiling very fast. And I think that this is because, Uniswap has, $4.5 billion right now of liquidity in there. A lot of that liquidity is in these, larger pools, right? The most popular pools. And it's just, a lot of the LP tokens are really not doing anything, right? They're just sitting in people's wallets. So why not give them the option to actually use that? Because it's very good collateral. Because if you look here, right, and you might think that the other tokens here, like, BAT or SNX or Uni or whatever, are like, quote-unquote, lower quality tokens than like ETH, for example. Well, when you're collateralizing with the LP token, it's still 50% ETH, but 50% the other token. So you still have that really, really great collateral in ETH, and then you have like, not bad collateral, but like, collateral that is not, as liquid as ETH, right, as trustless as ETH sort of thing, and doesn't have the same properties as ETH, but you still get ETH as part of an LP pair. So it really is like, half of it's collateralized with ETH, half of it's with this other token, which I thought was really, really cool here. So yeah, I mean, this is just another step on the way to kind of like Aave just completely dominating this space right now. I mean, they're dominating. I mean, Compound and Aave are pretty much like, the two biggest money markets here, and Aave moves faster than Compound. Like, obviously, Compound doesn't have LP tokens as collateral yet. I don't know if they will, but I was looking at it before, and Compound actually has like a lot more ETH in it than Aave does. I think Aave has a few 100,000 ETH, and Compound has like 1.2 million ETH. Whether this is because of the liquidity mining that Compound has going on or not is another thing I haven't looked into. It probably plays a part in it, but I know there was plans to do liquidity mining on Aave as well, so we might see that come to Aave. But this is really, really cool, and congrats on Aave on this massive launch. I know they've been working on this for quite a while now, and I think it's gonna add a lot of liquidity to the protocol going forward. So Banteg posted on Twitter here that MetaMask updated to version 9.2.0, which includes a bunch of great features. The most hotly anticipated feature, and one that I've wanted for quite a while, was support for multiple Ledger and Trezor hardware wallets. Now, anyone who's used MetaMask and used a hardware wallet with it to pass through, you'd know that you'd have to basically change accounts and reconnect every time, right? That you wanted to use a different address, which is super annoying because myself, I know a lot of my friends as well, and I'm sure you do as well, have a lot of different addresses that you use for various different things, and having to keep switching is just like super annoying. So the fact that you can now that it now supports multiple addresses for Ledger and Trezor here is awesome. And they've also added a warning when sending a token to its own contract address, which is amazing. I don't know if you guys have done it. I think I did it once back in like 2017, and like that was, I learned from that. But there's a lot of people who tend to accidentally send an ERC20 token to the contract address, and a lot of these contracts don't have a way to get these tokens out. Some of them will have a withdrawal mechanism or a callback mechanism where you can basically say return to sender sort of thing, but most of them don't. So what ends up happening is someone will send their token to the contract address instead of to where they want it to go. And then it's lost, right, effectively, and they can't get it back. And now, there's this warning here, which is really, really cool, that I think is much needed. So I'm glad MetaMask kind of added this here. And they also added warnings for excessive custom gas price inputs as well, which is great because, sometimes you may accidentally fat finger a gas price. Say you're putting in 100 Gwei, you might accidentally put in like 1,000 Gwei, right? That's just like, I guess, like a simple example of that, but I'm sure that happens more often than not. So another great feature here from MetaMask, and just really cool to see them kind of like releasing more stuff here. I mean, MetaMask is a really great tool, and obviously we all use it, and a lot of, it's basically used not just on Ethereum, but across other different networks as well, like XDAI and Matic and stuff like that. And it's just, a universally known tool pretty much at this stage, but it still needs a lot of features that we're missing, right? These are missing. There's some other features that are missing as well, but they're adding to it. They're actually improving it now, which is really, really, really cool to see, because, it has the widest install base on desktop or at least in terms of like a browser extension. Everyone uses it. Everyone's familiar with it. And I think just adding more features just adds to that kind of suite there. So Colony has put out their 2021 roadmap here. Now, for those who don't know what Colony is, basically they launched Colony V2 a few kind of like weeks ago. But basically what it is, it's a place for communities, essentially. You can basically do there's so many features to this. I haven't really I won't go through them all on here. Basically, it lets you have like a community and lets you have like a DAO and kind of manage all of that. So you can manage like different tokens, right? You can manage like different staking. You can do things as a team essentially on here. So I think it's a really, really great tool. I don't think a lot of people know about it yet. But they're obviously working on a lot of stuff. I mean, this is the 2021 roadmap, and I'm just kind of like going through what they're working on. And it's kind of like, I guess maybe I haven't explained it as well as I can, because I think, it only came out like a few weeks ago, and as I said, I haven't dug into it too much. But basically, it's a collaboration tool for different teams within, I guess like Ethereum, and this would be really great for like DAOs. Like if you're a DAO, right, and you kind of like want to manage payments to developers and things like that, and you want to manage different tokens, you want to do staking, you want to do stuff in DeFi, you want an interface to kind of manage that. This is kind of what this is. And it's also got a bunch of social features as well from what I've seen. And this may seem similar to something like Aragon as well, but I think Aragon at this point hasn't really delivered on what they've promised over the years, and it's kind of fallen behind. And it's great to see Colony kind of come to market here and bring a lot of these features in. But I'm not sure how much kind of like governance stuff Colony will do as well. I think it's more of just like a collaboration, communication, like, treasury kind of management tool rather than like a full-blown DAO. But if I'm wrong there, there's governance stuff here, so maybe that is kind of like inbuilt, or it's coming as part of this roadmap as well. But yeah, I suggest you go read this whole roadmap, obviously, to get a feel for what they've got coming here. And you can also go to their blog here. I'm sure I think they had like an introduction blog post a while back here. Yeah, or reintroducing Colony. Sorry, there was this one here. I remember posting about it. Here it is. If it wants to load, there we go. So yeah, basically, they've been around since like 2017, and they've essentially relaunched here. And I think they've actually launched, maybe not on the Ethereum mainnet, on a sidechain like XDAI or something like that. I think I read that somewhere. I might be wrong here. I'm just scrolling through to see if I'm wrong here. But yeah, anyway, definitely go check this out and see what they're kind of up to here, and it might be something that you or your team is kind of interested in. So Immutable put out this extremely bullish post today. I mean, I was reading through this and I was getting like super bullish on layer 2s and everything, because for those of you who don't know, Immutable is the team behind, I guess, Immutable X and Gods Unchained. And Immutable X is a layer 2 NFT exchange that's coming out soon that's built on Starkware's technology. And in this blog post, they basically explain the design architecture behind it and why they chose this route, which made me really bullish, because this team is one of those teams that really gets it. They really get that, you know, building scalability solutions without inheriting Ethereum security does not work for most apps, right? It's not the right path. The right path is inheriting Ethereum security and decentralization and scaling via a true L2, so that you can kind of retain those properties, but also give a way better user experience with cheaper fees and you know, more transactions per second and all that good stuff. So yeah, they basically go through this in this blog post. And as I was reading through, I was like, wow, you know, not just about Immutable, but all these things that have been solved over the years. You know, it took us years to get to the roll-up world. I mean, a lot of you might remember Plasma from back in the day and state channels, and they still have their space. I mean, Matic is using Plasma. State channels is being used by Connects to bridge different L2s together. But roll-ups are basically what we've landed on in terms of like a full suite for different apps. And we obviously have zkRollups and optimistic rollups. Immutable X is going with zkRollup technology rather than optimistic rollup because of that withdrawal delay, which would, you know, isn't actually a big deal for most things, but for NFTs it is. And the reason why it's a big deal is because you can't have a liquidity pool that sits between L1 and L2 for NFTs, because they are by definition illiquid because they're non-fungible, right? Whereas you can for like ERC20 tokens and things like that. So that's why they've decided to go with zkRollup, or at least a major reason why. But also because Starkware's technology is amazing. I mean, I have never heard anyone say anything bad about Starkware, and everyone that I've ever spoken to about them has like been raving about how great their technology is and how great their team is. I mean, their technology is already powering Diversify, which is this decentralized exchange, and DYDX as well, which is the perpetual decentralized exchange. So the tech's real, it's out there. You know, it's getting better every day, and Immutable X will be the first kind of NFT exchange running on this, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. But go read the blog post. You can get as bullish as I was on kind of layer 2s here. So Maker Governance has got a few different polls here to add new collateral types to Maker. So the bunch of different collateral types here, there's SNX, SUSD, Aave, which is staked Aave, a WETH, which is like ETH deposited into Aave, Solar X, which looks like our REIT stands for Real Estate Investment Trust, so I think it's like obviously something to do with real estate there. And X Sushi from SushiSwap, which is the staked sushi token. And then there's also some more kind of like tokens here as well. There's Solid Block Beachfront Digital Coin. I have absolutely no idea what that is, but you know, the first time I'm hearing about it. And then the Curve LP tokens as well. As I was saying before, you know, Maker had Uniswap LP tokens, but now they're adding Curve LP tokens as well, and there's a bunch of other things here about increasing the debt ceilings and stuff. But what I kind of wanted to talk about was how funny it is that SNX and SUSD are up for consideration to be included into Maker. Now, for those of you who don't know the history behind this, there's a lot of people who thought for a long time that thought Synthetics was a Ponzi scheme. It was not so much a scam, but like that it wouldn't work. The mechanisms that they had created where you would, you know, use SNX as collateral for the whole system were basically self-referential, and that wouldn't scale and wouldn't work. And you know, a lot of those concerns have pretty much been alleviated at this point. You know, I think the system works and everything like that. So I don't think, you know, that's a kind of major talking point anymore, but it was for the longest time. So it's kind of like a weird timeline to be in where, you know, and there is also a fact where Maker and Synthetics are competing to an extent, because SUSD is a synthetic stablecoin, like DAI is a synthetic stablecoin, and then, you know, but at the same time, Synthetics is doing a bunch of different things with synthetic assets. Maker's more about, you know, the DAI stablecoin, and also I guess like offering cheap leverage to people. But yeah, just a funny thing that I kind of like saw here, and I thought it was cool to point out. But really great in general to see Maker adding more collateral assets. I mean, I use Maker almost exclusively for a lot of stuff, like especially for ETH. This I mean, there's a few reasons why. The number one reason is trust. Maker has never been exploited or hacked or anything. The only, I guess instance of something bad happening with Maker was on Black Thursday, where the keeper bots didn't, bid on the collateral, ended up making Maker kind of like under collateralized, and then they had to print MKR tokens to kind of make up for that. But other than that, I mean, their smart contracts have been heavily audited, formally verified. They've been around for ages. They have 3 million plus ETH locked in their smart contracts. So for me, I trust Maker a lot. And I know DAI loses its peg from time to time, but they've shown that the system can actually bring DAI back to its peg. Eventually, like sometimes it does take a little while, but it shows that it can return kind of back to peg here. So that's a major reason why I use Maker for most of my kind of leverage needs. Within DeFi, of course, but that's not to say that Aave or Compound aren't great either. But in general, Maker is just like my go-to for a lot of the time, and it's great to see them adding in staked Aave and ETH deposited in Aave as well, which is really cool, and staked sushi as well, because I hold some sushi tokens that I stake, and obviously Aave supports this as well, but being able to leverage that is cool. And same with SNX, being able to leverage the SNX as well in a more efficient way, because right now, if you borrow stablecoins against SNX or SUSD against it, when you stake it in the synthetic system, I think it's like a 500% collateralization ratio or something, or maybe 400%. I can't remember exactly. But within Maker, I don't think it's going to be that high. If it's lower, it's just better capital efficiency. You can get more for your dollar here. So yeah, we'll see how these kind of polls go and see what happens. But I do expect a bunch of these assets to be added for sure. So Aztec Network, this is so a lot of you might not be aware of what Aztec Network is. They've been building in stealth for quite a while, and not totally in stealth where no one knew about them, but they just aren't very loud when marketing themselves. So basically, what Aztec is they're basically a privacy network for, I guess, like Ethereum, where you can basically shield your ETH and ERC20 tokens like you could shield your Zcash in on the Zcash blockchain using a bunch of zero knowledge tech here. Now, what they've done with this release is they've actually released a layer 2 zkRollup for privacy onto Ethereum now, which is awesome. I mean, this is just another layer 2 that's come out, right? And I've been saying it for months that layer 2, this year was the year of layer 2, and we're seeing it trickle out. We're seeing things come to mainnet, and we've still got big releases coming like Optimism, Arbitrum, and Immutable X, and a bunch of others, I'm sure as well. CEXs is coming out with their bridging technology and things like that. But with Aztec here, this is basically layer 2 privacy, essentially. So now when you basically, you can basically, as I said, shield your ETH, and ETH ERC20 tokens will be added in the next few weeks, as noted here. And then on layer 2, you can basically have private transactions, which is obviously a really big deal, right? I've spoken about how layer 1, I don't think privacy would ever come to layer 1. Basically, I mean, there's a few reasons. The cost is actually quite high to run like a proper privacy kind of protocol on layer 1. And also, if you do privacy at the base layer, so if you put it actually into the Ethereum protocol itself, it wouldn't actually be a feature, because there's a thing that happened with Zcash where there was an inflation bug, and basically this was detected, but the problem is that it was detected, but they don't know if it was actually exploited. So they don't know if more Zcash tokens were printed due to this bug and are just hiding in like a shielded address, for example. So because of this, there could just be like a massive amount of Zcash out there just waiting to be dumped on the market at any time, or waiting to enter the circulating supply at any kind of time. And there's kind of no way to know that until it happens. Now, you can imagine how catastrophic this would be for ETH. If there was an inflation bug, we couldn't detect it because because everything was private, right? We couldn't detect if it was exploited because of that. That would be really bad. So those are the two main reasons why I don't think we're going to see kind of like in layer 1 protocol privacy. But again, it doesn't matter, because as I've said before, most activity is going to be at layer 2 now. It's not going to be on layer 1. Layer 1's going to eventually be a, I guess, security chain for layer 2, and also a chain where basically whales will be on. And that's just the reality of it, because that's the only way to keep Ethereum decentralized and secure like it is today, which isn't a bad thing, because rollups are going to give the same user experience as layer 1, but just with massive scalability and lower fees. So yeah, that's what kind of like Aztec is bringing here with their layer 2 privacy solution. And you can actually use it at zk.money here if you go to this website, kind of like set yourself up and start using it there. But basically, I mean, it's a really nice interface as well. I was playing with it before. I mean, look at this here. Like, that's just beautiful, right? I mean, it's very, I guess Uniswap has this design of, I guess these gradients here. And I think that's kind of like a lot of apps, like SushiSwap as well has this, like, are going towards this design, which I actually don't mind. I really do like it. They've got a block explorer that you can kind of go and view kind of like the transactions and everything like that. And then in Aztec 2.1, which is their next release, is they're going to have new assets. They're going to have wrapped Bitcoin, BAT, Aave, DAI. It's really interesting they have wrapped Bitcoin here. You'll be able to have private Bitcoin transactions, which is quite cool, I think. And then they're going to increase the cap. There's a safety cap of 1 ETH right now for security purposes. And then they're going to be doing a DeFi integration where they upgrade the network to enable users to interact with liquid DeFi transaction types without leaving the Aztec network, which is really, really, really cool. So yeah, go read the blog post for full details here. I mean, I'm really hyped for this launch. And as I said, these guys build in stealth and then release something game-changing every few months. And this is just another thing to add into, I guess, their product rollout here. So I put this tweet out today, and I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter. This is one of my favorite kind of metrics, or I guess like charts to keep track of, and it's the ETH percent supply in smart contracts versus the ETH percent supply in centralized exchanges. Now, you can see here that it has continued to basically flip. We basically flipped it mid-September 2020, and we started the kind of flippening in June 2020 when Compound's liquidity mining program started. But you can see here that in the green is the Ethereum percent, percent balance on centralized exchanges. Now, this dropped from about 17% to 13% over the last, I would say, year or so here, which represents about a 4% drop, right? And then ETH's percent supply in smart contracts has actually gone up from 12% to over 20% here. Maybe that's like 21% or something like that. It's a crazy amount there. So obviously, smart contracts are absorbing the ETH coming out of centralized exchanges, but they're also getting more ETH in them from people's kind of wallets in general because of DeFi and stuff like that. But what this really shows, and what I think is really, really cool about this, is that DeFi is doing what it's set out to do, and that's take power away from centralized exchanges and institutions and take assets out of them and bring them onto Ethereum, bring them onto DeFi, have self-custody, have decentralization, have like really secure kind of like liquid assets and assets that you can do more with on kind of like Ethereum. So, you know, this trend doesn't seem to be slowing down. I think it's going to keep increasing here. And also during a bull market, I guess as well, you tend to see ETH and other tokens leave centralized exchanges if they're in a quote-unquote accumulation, right? Going into cold storage and things like that. But in general, you know, we've seen the amount of ETH growing DeFi as well. I mean, looking back at the same time, in June 2020, there was 2.7 million ETH in DeFi. Now there's 9 million ETH in DeFi. So we've had a massive 6.3 million ETH gain in DeFi in just like the last, 9 months here, which is really, really positive as well. So yeah, really great to see this. If you want to dive in deeper, I wrote more about it in the newsletter. You can find the link to that in the description. So BarnBridge finally released their smart yield product on app.barnbridge.com, which is over here. This one here, yeah. So basically you can connect your wallet and kind of like enter into this USDC senior kind of risk pool here and get like an APY on it. So for those who don't know, I mean, these products are quite advanced. Like BarnBridge basically makes tranced risk products, and these are things that retail investors will particularly never touch, and they're more geared towards institutions and like the big money and the Wall Street types. It's not something that me and you, for example, like as a retail investor, as an individual, are going to basically touch ever in the traditional system. But because this is DeFi, we get access to all of this stuff, right? Just like we get access to a bunch of other products, you know, like options products, which are also super exotic products, obviously leverage as well, futures products, all these sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, the smart yield kind of bonds here, I mean, as BarnBridge describes it, it's interest rate volatility risk mitigation using debt-based derivatives. Now, This sort of thing is not something that retail investors really do, right? I mean, this is like, as I said, Wall Street, institutional stuff, and that's why BarnBridge is building this. One of the main reasons is to appeal to those kind of investors and money allocators, but also bring this obviously to DeFi so that retail investors can get involved too. But I do recommend going and reading what this is all about. You can find all the information on BarnBridge. They've got documentation and stuff like that before getting involved, because you may be buying into something that you don't know what it is. And I would do like a pretty poor example of explaining exactly how it all works to you on the refuel, because I myself am not like totally up to speed with it, because it's not a product that I have used before. But now that they have a product out there, it's probably worth kind of learning about it and seeing if it's something that you would be interested in. So Alpha Finance, I've spoken about them before and how they're basically allowing you to get like a pretty high APY on just your ETH, right? So pure ETH, not like staked ETH, not ETH paired with another token, like pure ETH. And this is 40% right now on Alpha Finance here. And there are risks here. I mean, as Alpha notes below, the I guess like the high APY is because of the high utilization here. So because of that, you may not be able to get like your ETH out, depending on if the utilization is really high. You have to wait for it to kind of come down. But that's how they offer the high APY. I mean, that's one thing that I think that a lot of people might not be kind of like, I guess, not aware of, but maybe they don't take into account too much, is that everything has trade-offs with it. If you're getting like a really high APY on something, there's usually a lot of risk involved, but there's also sometimes, I mean, it's not too good to be true, because a lot of this stuff is actually true, even though it's really high APY. But for example, the pool twos of the world, the incentivized token pools, where you kind of like provide liquidity for a token to ETH, right? And they have like really high APYs. Well, the downside risk to this is that the price moves, way too much, or the token just like absolutely dumps, and you get stuck holding the bag of that token, and the APY didn't mean anything, because now you're holding a token that you sold your ETH for. Because if the token price is going down, right? And the way liquidity providing works is that if you're paired, with ETH and that token price is going down, you're selling your ETH for that token, essentially, right? So you're essentially buying more of that token as it goes down. And then the other way, it's not as painful, because you're basically selling the token that's going up for the token that's not, let's say for ETH, right? In this example. But in a pool 2, in an incentivized liquidity pool that's paying out like high APY, they're paying out their tokens. So you become, not you, but like the pool 2 becomes like the dump pool. So everyone's dumping into it. And if the token's just like, not great, or if there's like a death spiral where, people are dumping into it, then people are pulling their liquidity because they're losing too much money. And then, the liquidity dries up and the dumps get more brutal and brutal. We saw this play out in DeFi summer. Some of these things went down like 80, 90, like 99%, right? And then you just get stuck holding the worthless token, and you have to basically, wait till it goes back up, and it might not ever go back up, and it might stay down there for a while. So there's a lot of risks there. But with Alpha Finance's product here, they actually use the ETH within their system, so that's also a risk there. And as I said, the high utilization rate is how they get that high APY, and if it's too high, there'll be like a thing where you can't kind of like withdraw and you have to wait. And this isn't just like exclusive to Alpha Finance. There's also Compound. If there's no more stablecoin liquidity, you can't basically get your stablecoins out. If you put it in there, you have to wait for people to pay it back. And there's different mechanisms to encourage people to pay it back, and it usually works, right? It's usually pretty good, but in general though, 40% APY on just ETH, pure ETH, is pretty much unbeatable in this space right now. I mean, I know there's a bunch of things like the ETH pull on Curve that's offering around maybe 40% as well. But again, that is pairing it with another asset. And now, of course, STETH and ETH are like very similar in price, because STETH is staked ETH through Lido. But again, if something happens to that, right, what ends up happening is that that token gets kind of like put into the pool, and the ETH gets drained out of the pool, and you kind of like get stuck holding the bag again. So always risks, always trade-offs. If you see a really high APY number, make sure that you understand why it's so high. And a lot of it, can be good, but you have to understand the risks. You can't just like, I guess, ape into something and then expect not to lose your money. Like for me, the way I approach it is like, okay, this, like if I'm aping into something, if I'm actually just going into something because, I'm getting FOMO or something, and I don't do this often, but sometimes, right? I kind of think to myself, okay, well, whatever money I put into this, I could lose, right? maybe the contract gets hacked, maybe I get rug pulled, all this sort of stuff. And that's what the way you kind of approach newer protocols. But for existing ones, we'd have legit teams behind them, right? Especially the ones who have never been exploited or hacked or anything like that. You can have better confidence there. But again, the APY is lower because it's not as risky, right? There's a lot more capital in it and all this sort of stuff. But you know, Alpha's able to offer 40% on what looks to be 184,000 ETH kind of in there, which is a lot of money, right? That's nothing to scoff at. There's hundreds of millions of dollars, I think. So yeah, really, really cool rate here from Alpha Finance. Something for you to check out if you weren't aware of it. So last thing to talk about today was Elon Musk tweeting about an NFT. So he basically tweeted out, "I'm selling this song about NFTs as an NFT." I don't know if he was serious about this or not. I mean, I really like this though. This looks really, really cool here where, you know, I mean, I would buy this, right? I mean, obviously I can't afford it because this would get bid up like the Beeple's kind of artwork would get bid up. But yeah, I mean, this is just really, really cool. And I hope he does auction it off, and I hope he donates the money to charity or something because he obviously doesn't need the money, right? And the design in general is just like awesome. Like you got the Doge here, right? And you have like just like the gold around it and like the moon up here with NFT up there. And then that's just really cool. So I'm curious to see what he does here. If he actually does auction this off or kind of like put this on a platform, I'm sure this is going to get bid up, right? Elon Musk's first NFT. Could you imagine, you know, how much of this would go for? Tens of millions, I would say. Maybe not as much as the Beeple. I don't know. Maybe Justin Sun would bid for this as well. I mean, I actually think he would, which would push the price up as well. But yeah, just really funny to see, you know, the world's richest man, one of the most famous people in the world, getting involved with NFTs. You know, and it's just crazy to see how much NFTs have kind of blown up here. But you can also see, you know, I quote tweeted here and I said, when ETH on balance sheet, Elon Musk, because obviously Tesla put BTC on their balance sheet, $1.5 billion worth of BTC on their balance sheet a few weeks ago now, or it was a while ago now, actually, I think. And as I've said before, I expect more and more kind of public companies to start putting ETH on their balance sheet. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tesla do this. Especially if, you know, when ETH's on proof of stake, it would make a lot of sense because obviously Tesla's an energy car company and cares a lot about the environment. Sorry, electric car company, not energy car company. But yeah, in general, maybe that doesn't happen for a while. But I think the fact that, you know, NFTs are mostly on Ethereum, like the real kind of actual valuable NFTs are mostly on Ethereum, and that's going to bring in a lot of interest into Ethereum, which is going to bring a lot of interest to ETH. So we should see some kind of movement there. But yeah, in general, I mean, I just think it's crazy how much NFTs have blown up. You know, everyone was saying DeFi is what's going to make Ethereum mainstream or crypto mainstream. It was NFTs in the end, which is kind of obvious in hindsight because NFTs kind of, I guess, appeal to a much wider base of people than DeFi does. You know, NFTs are collectibles, in-game items, art. You know, there's massive fans of that. We love DeFi, but in general, not many people actually think too hard about their finances, right? They defer a lot of that to the institutions like banks and their brokerage firms and all that sort of stuff and their investment advisors. And, you know, maybe that's still true for the coming decades, but I think, you know, slowly over time, more and more people are going to care about this and more people are going to use DeFi. But DeFi is definitely a slower burn than NFTs. So again, you know, I've said Ethereum has a million different ways to enter its ecosystem through. And the NFTs is just one of those kind of ways, and it's a big way. But we've also got DeFi and DAOs and, you know, human coordination and Web3. I mean, there's so many ways to enter Ethereum right now. Hard not to be bullish, right? Always bullish, perma-bullish here, and I hope you guys are too. But that is it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to that channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Join the Discord server. Subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.